Elena Cross sent the text at 11:47 p.m. on a Friday night she'd never be able to take back. Come get me. 2 words. No explanation. No safety net. Just reckless want aimed at the one man she had no business wanting. Her boss, Vincent Moretti, a man whose power extended into shadows most people pretended didn't exist. She stared at her phone, wine-drunk and terrified, waiting for the humiliation of silence or the professional devastation of a response. What she got instead was a knock on her door 9 minutes later and a look in his eyes that told her he'd been waiting for her to break first. If you're watching from your city tonight, drop a comment and let me know where this story is reaching. Hit that like button and stay with me until the end. Because what happens when the quietest person in the room finally stops playing it safe is about to get very, very complicated. Duh. Elena Cross had perfected the art of being forgettable. It wasn't something she was born with. It was survival. In Vincent Moretti's office, in his world, the people who lasted were the ones who knew how to be useful without being noticed. The ones who didn't ask questions. The ones who understood that loyalty wasn't just valued, it was mandatory. And the cost of breaking it was something you didn't come back from. She'd been his executive assistant for 11 months. 11 months of arriving before him, leaving after him, managing his schedule with military precision, and making sure his coffee was exactly how he liked it. Black, no sugar, hot enough to burn if you weren't careful. 11 months of being so damn good at her job that he never had to think about her. Except she thought about him constantly. It was pathetic, really. The kind of cliche that made her cringe every time she caught herself staring too long when he rolled up his sleeves or laughed, rare but devastating, at something one of his associates said. Vincent Moretti was not a man you developed feelings for if you had any sense of self-preservation. He was 42, intimidatingly self-possessed, and moved through the world like someone who'd never once questioned whether he belonged in a room. His business empire looked clean on paper. Real estate development, private equity, consulting. But Elena wasn't stupid. She'd seen enough in 11 months to know the truth lived in the margins. The late-night calls he took in Italian. The men who came to the office in expensive suits and left looking either relieved or terrified. The way people stepped aside when he walked into a room, not out of respect but out of something older and more primal, fear. And somehow, despite all of that, or maybe because of it, she'd fallen for him so hard it made her feel ridiculous. She never let it show. Not once. At work she was polite, competent, borderline robotic. She answered his emails within minutes, anticipated his needs before he voiced them, and kept her personal life so far removed from the office that most of her coworkers probably assumed she didn't have one. Which, to be fair, wasn't entirely wrong. Her life outside of work consisted of her tiny studio apartment in a building with bad heating, a handful of acquaintances she saw maybe once a month, and a growing collection of books she was too tired to read. It was safe, boring, lonely as hell, and she'd convinced herself she was fine with it. Until tonight. Tonight, she'd made the mistake of saying yes when her friend Nicole had insisted they go out for drinks. Nicole was one of those aggressively social people who treated Friday night like a competitive sport, and Elena had run out of excuses to avoid her. So she'd gone. She'd sat at a loud bar in the East Village, nursed 2 glasses of wine that turned into 4, and listened to Nicole give her the same pep talk she'd been giving for months. "You're 28 years old and you live like a nun," Nicole had said, leaning across the table with the kind of intensity only drunk people could muster. "When was the last time you did something reckless? When was the last time you even wanted something?" Elena had laughed it off, but the wine had loosened something in her chest. "I want things." Like what? She should have lied. Should have said a vacation or a promotion or literally anything other than the truth. But the alcohol had stripped her down to raw honesty, and before she could stop herself, she said, "My boss." Nicole's eyes had gone wide. "Vincent Moretti? Forget I said that. Oh my God, you're in love with him." "I'm not." "You are. You're in love with your terrifying mob boss." "He's not a mob boss," Elena had said, even though they both knew that was a semantic argument at best. Nicole had grinned, wicked and delighted. "Then text him." "Absolutely not. Do it. Right now. What's the worst that could happen? I could lose my job, my apartment, possibly my kneecaps." Or, Nicole had said, leaning in closer, he could show up. And that's how Elena had ended up alone in her apartment, at 11:47 p.m., staring at her phone with her heart trying to punch its way out of her chest. She'd typed the message 3 times and deleted it twice. The third time, she'd hit send before she could think better of it. Come get me. No context, no explanation. Just 2 words sent to a man who could ruin her life without breaking a sweat. She sat on her couch, phone clutched in both hands, waiting for the inevitable. He wouldn't respond. Or worse, he'd respond professionally, something polite and distant that would make Monday morning unbearable. She'd have to quit, move, change her name, fake her own death maybe. Her phone buzzed. Vincent Moretti. Address? Her breath caught. She stared at the screen, convinced she'd hallucinated it. Another buzz. Vincent Moretti. Elena. Her hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone. She typed her address, sent it, and immediately wanted to throw up. Vincent Moretti. Don't move. She sat frozen on her couch, heart hammering, brain spinning through every possible version of what happened next. Maybe he was coming to fire her in person. Maybe he was angry. Maybe a knock. She looked at her phone. It had been 9 minutes since she'd sent the first text. 9 minutes. She stood on shaking legs, crossed the small space to her door, and opened it. Vincent Moretti stood in the hallway, still in the charcoal suit he'd worn to the office that morning, though his tie was gone and the top 2 buttons of his shirt were undone. He looked at her with an expression she couldn't read, something dark and intent and entirely focused on her. You texted me, he said. His voice was low, controlled, but there was an edge to it she'd never heard before. I did. Her voice came out smaller than she wanted. Why? She should have lied. Should have said it was a mistake, a drunk text meant for someone else. But he was standing in her doorway, looking at her like he already knew the answer, and she was so tired of pretending. Because I wanted you to. Something shifted in his expression. Not surprise, more like confirmation. He stepped forward, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to keep eye contact, and said, You have no idea how long I've been waiting for you to do something like this. Her brain short-circuited. What? I've wanted you since the day you walked into my office wearing that terrible navy suit and told me you didn't care what my business was as long as the pay was good. He said it like a confession, low and rough. I've spent 11 months trying not to touch you, Elena. 11 months watching you be so damn careful, so professional, so safe. And then you send me 2 words in the middle of the night and expect me not to show up? She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I thought that I didn't notice you? He laughed, sharp and humorless. I notice everything about you. The way you bite your lip when you're concentrating. How you take your coffee with too much cream and not enough sugar. That you never look me in the eye unless I ask you a direct question. You think I don't see you, but I do. I always have. Then why didn't you? Because you work for me. His jaw tightened. Because I have a reputation, Elena, and it's not one that makes women feel safe. Because the last thing I wanted was for you to think I was using my position to pressure you into something you didn't want. I want this, she said, and the words came out stronger than she felt. I've wanted this for months. His hand came up, fingers brushing the side of her face, and she froze. His touch was careful, deliberate, like he was testing whether she'd pull away. She didn't. Say it again, he said quietly. I want you. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was 11 months of restraint breaking apart all at once. His hand sliding into her hair, his body crowding hers until her back hit the wall beside the door. She gasped against his mouth, and he took the opportunity to deepen the kiss, tasting like whiskey and want, and something she couldn't name but desperately needed more of. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and he made a low sound in his throat that sent heat straight through her. She'd imagined this, of course she had, but the reality was nothing like the fantasy. He kissed like he did everything else, with total focus, like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. His forehead rested against hers, his hand still tangled in her hair. This changes everything, he said. I know. I don't do casual, Elena. If we do this, it's not just tonight. Her heart was racing so fast she thought it might give out. What is it then? It's you and me figuring out how to make this work without destroying each other. He pulled back just enough to look at her, his expression serious. My life isn't simple. The people I deal with, the things I'm involved in, it's dangerous. If you're with me, you're in that world too. I need you to understand that. She should have been scared, should have stepped back, thanked him for the honesty, and shut the door on whatever this was before it got her killed. But she'd spent her whole life playing it safe, and for once, she didn't want to. I understand, she said. Do you? You think I don't know what you do? She met his eyes, steady despite the fear curling in her stomach. I'm not stupid, Vincent. I've spent 11 months scheduling meetings with men who don't have LinkedIn profiles and transferring money to accounts that don't officially exist. I know what I signed up for when I took this job. And I'm still here. A slow smile crossed his face, rare, genuine, and so devastating it made her knees weak. You're tougher than you look. I have to be. You're terrifying. He laughed, and the sound was low and warm and did something dangerous to her chest. You're not scared of me. I am. A little. Good. He kissed her again, softer this time, like he had all the time in the world. You should be. They ended up on her couch, his jacket discarded on the floor, her legs tucked under her as she leaned into his side. It felt surreal. Vincent Moretti, the man who made grown men nervous, sitting in her tiny apartment like this was normal. Why tonight? He asked after a while, his fingers tracing absent patterns on her shoulder. She hesitated. I had too much wine and a friend who's very pushy. Remind me to send her a thank you card. She laughed despite herself. What would it say? Thanks for getting my assistant drunk enough to make a pass at me. Something like that. He paused. I'm glad you did. Text me, I mean. I was starting to think you never would. I didn't think you'd come. I would have come if you'd texted me at 3 a.m. asking for coffee. I would have come if you'd told me you were bored and wanted to argue about nothing. I would have come for anything, Elena, because I've been looking for an excuse to stop keeping my distance. She looked up at him, searching his face. You're serious? I don't joke about things that matter to me. And I matter? His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. More than you know. They stayed like that for a long time, talking in the low, halting way people do when they're saying things they've never said out loud before. He told her about the first time he'd noticed her, not at the interview, but 2 weeks into her employment, when she'd corrected a financial report one of his senior managers had screwed up and saved him from looking like an idiot in front of a client. She told him about the exact moment she'd realized she was in trouble. 6 months in, when he'd taken off his reading glasses and rubbed his eyes after a 14-hour day, and she'd felt something shift in her chest that had nothing to do with professional admiration. You wear glasses? She asked, surprised. Only when I'm reading contracts. You've never seen them? No. I'll make sure you do. He said it like a promise. It was past 3 a.m. when he finally stood to leave, and she felt the loss of his warmth immediately. I should go, he said, though he didn't sound happy about it. Okay. He looked down at her, hesitating. Monday's going to be complicated. I know. We'll figure it out. He leaned down, kissed her once more, slow and deliberate, like he was trying to memorize the taste of her, and then he was gone. Elena sat alone in her apartment, door closed, heart still racing. She'd just kissed her boss. She'd just started something with a man whose world was built on secrets and violence and loyalty that came with a price. And the worst part? She didn't regret it, not even a little. By Monday morning, Elena had convinced herself it had all been a wine-fueled fever dream. She showed up to the office at 7:30, same as always, and went through her usual routine. Coffee first, then emails, then a review of Vincent's schedule for the day. She was halfway through confirming his lunch reservation when her desk phone rang. Mr. Moretti's office, she answered automatically. Come in here. Vincent's voice, low, clipped, professional. Her stomach dropped. Of course. She stood, smoothed her skirt, gray, knee-length, as boring as she could manage, and knocked once before entering his office. He was standing by the window, hands in his pockets, looking out over the city. He didn't turn when she came in. Close the door, he said. She did. We need to talk, he continued, still not looking at her. Here it comes, she thought. The regret, the backpedaling, the polite but firm conversation where he explained that Friday night was a mistake and they needed to keep things professional going forward. She braced herself. Okay. He turned then, and the look on his face wasn't what she expected. He didn't look regretful. He looked wrecked. I haven't stopped thinking about you, he said bluntly. Since I left your apartment, I've thought about nothing else. And I need to know if you meant what you said. She blinked. Which part? All of it. That you want this. That you understand what you're getting into. Because if we do this, Elena, there's no going back. I won't be able to pretend I don't want you. I won't be able to keep my distance, and I need to know you're ready for that. Her heart was pounding again. I meant it. Even sober? Especially sober. Something in his shoulders relaxed. He crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping just short of touching her. We do this my way. We keep it private, at least for now. No one at the office knows. No one in my circle knows. Not because I'm ashamed, but because the people I deal with would see you as a weakness, and I won't put you in that position until I'm sure I can protect you. Okay. At work, nothing changes. You're still my assistant. I'm still your boss. We're professional, polite, and careful. And outside of work? His eyes darkened. Outside of work, you're mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have scared her. Instead, it sent a thrill straight through her. Okay, she said again, breathless. He reached out, fingers brushing hers, the barest touch, but it felt like a brand. I'll pick you up tonight, 7 o'clock. Wear something you don't mind ruining. Her eyebrows shot up. Ruining? A slow, dangerous smile. We're going somewhere you'll need to get your hands dirty. That's ominous. You said you wanted in. This is me letting you in. He stepped back, putting distance between them again, and just like that, he was Vincent Moretti, CEO, untouchable and in control. That's all, Miss Cross, he said, his tone perfectly professional. Hold my calls until 9:30. She left his office on shaking legs, closed the door behind her, and sat at her desk trying to remember how to breathe. What the hell had she just agreed to? His son. At 7 o'clock sharp, Vincent's car pulled up outside her building. Elena had changed 3 times before settling on dark jeans, a plain black sweater, and boots that could handle rough terrain. She had no idea where they were going, but somewhere you'll need to get your hands dirty didn't sound like a 5-star restaurant. The driver, a man named Marco, who she recognized from occasional office appearances, opened the door for her without a word. She slid into the back seat and found Vincent waiting, dressed down in dark slacks and a fitted Henley that did absolutely nothing to make him look less intimidating. Hey, she said. Hey. He looked her over, approval flickering across his face. Good, you dressed smart. Where are we going? You'll see. They drove for 40 minutes, leaving the city behind and heading into industrial Brooklyn, the kind of area where warehouses outnumbered people and streetlights were more suggestion than reality. Elena's nerves ratcheted up with every passing block. Finally, Marco pulled into a lot behind a nondescript building and parked. Vincent looked at her. Last chance to change your mind. About what? About whether you really want to see what I do. She met his eyes. I'm here, aren't I? He smiled, small, almost proud, and got out of the car. She followed. Inside, the building was cleaner than she expected. Concrete floors, metal shelving, fluorescent lights that buzzed faintly overhead. It looked like a storage facility, except for the 4 men standing near the back, and the one tied to a chair in the center of the room. Elena stopped walking. Vincent glanced back at her. You okay? She swallowed hard. Who is he? Someone who stole from me. Vincent's tone was calm, matter of fact. He thought I wouldn't notice. He was wrong. The man in the chair was young, mid-20s maybe, and looked terrified. Blood trickled from a cut above his eyebrow, and his hands were bound behind him. Vincent walked closer, and the room went silent. Tony, Vincent said, almost conversationally, you want to tell me why you thought skimming 30 grand from my accounts was a good idea? I didn't. I swear, Mr. Moretti, I didn't. Don't lie to me. Vincent's voice didn't rise, but the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. I have the transfer records. I have the emails. I have everything. So let's try this again. Why? Tony's face crumpled. My sister. She needed surgery, and I didn't have the money, and I thought, you thought you'd steal from me and I wouldn't find out. I was going to pay it back. With what? Vincent crouched down, eye level with the kid. You make $45,000 a year. You have $1,800 in your checking account and maxed out credit cards. You weren't going to pay me back, Tony. You were going to hope I didn't notice and pray you got lucky. I'm sorry. I don't care if you're sorry. Vincent stood, brushing imaginary dust off his pants. I care that you broke the rules. You know what happens when people break my rules. Elena's stomach twisted. Please, Tony whispered. Please, I'll do anything. Vincent looked at him for a long moment, then sighed. How much does your sister need? Tony blinked. What? The surgery. How much? 40,000. Vincent pulled out his phone, typed something, and within seconds, Tony's phone buzzed in his pocket. Even tied up, the sound was audible. Check it, Vincent said to one of his men. The man retrieved Tony's phone, looked at the screen, and nodded. 40,000. Just hit his account. Tony stared, uncomprehending. I don't... Here's how this works, Vincent said. I just paid for your sister's surgery. You're going to pay me back, every cent, with interest, over the next 5 years. You'll do it through payroll deduction, which means you'll be working for me for at least that long. You try to run, you try to quit, you try anything stupid, and I'll take it out of your sister's hospital. Are we clear? Yes, Tony choked out. Yes, sir. Good. Vincent nodded to his men. Untie him. Get him out of here. As Tony was escorted out, shaking, crying, but alive, Vincent turned and walked back to Elena. She hadn't moved. You paid for his sister's surgery, she said quietly. I did. After he stole from you. He made a stupid choice for a decent reason. I'm not a monster, Elena. I just can't afford to look weak. He studied her face. You okay? She thought about it. Really thought about it. Yeah, I think I am. You're not scared? I'm terrified, she admitted, but not of you. His expression softened. Come on, I'll buy you dinner. They ended up at a tiny Italian place in Red Hook, the kind of restaurant with no sign and 6 tables, where the owner greeted Vincent by name and didn't bother bringing menus. You come here a lot? Elena asked as they sat. My uncle owns it. It's family. Everything's family with you. Pretty much. He poured her wine, red, expensive, from a bottle the owner had brought without asking. You handled tonight better than I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. Panic? Disgust? Maybe you running for the door. She sipped her wine. Would you have stopped me? No, I would have made sure you got home safe, and then I would have let you go. He leaned back, watching her. I meant what I said, Elena. I won't trap you in this. If it's too much, you walk away. No consequences. And if I don't want to walk away, then you stay. He said it simply, like it was the easiest thing in the world. And we figure it out together. The food came, pasta, fresh bread, something with veal that smelled incredible. And they ate in comfortable near silence, the kind that only happens when 2 people are starting to fit together. Can I ask you something? Elena said eventually. Anything. Why me? He frowned. What do you mean? You could have anyone. Someone from your world, someone who already understands the rules. Someone who wouldn't need a crash course in whatever tonight was. So why me? Vincent set down his fork, giving her his full attention. Because you're the first person in 10 years who looked at me and didn't see a weapon. You see a person. Maybe not a good one, but a person. He paused. And because when you smile, really smile, not the polite thing you do at the office, it's the best thing I've seen in a long time. Her chest went tight. That's true, he finished. I don't lie to you, Elena. I won't start now. She believed him. They stayed until the restaurant closed, talking about nothing and everything. Her childhood in Pennsylvania, his complicated relationship with his father, the fact that they both hated cilantro and had strong opinions about coffee. It was normal, easy, like they'd been doing this for years instead of days. When he dropped her off at her apartment, he walked her to her door. Can I come in? He asked. Do you want to? I want to do a lot of things. Coming in is the least dangerous of them. She unlocked the door. Then come in. They didn't make it past the couch. His hands were in her hair, her legs wrapped around his waist, and every coherent thought she'd ever had dissolved into the heat of his mouth on hers. He kissed her like he was starving, like she was the only thing that could satisfy him, and she gave as good as she got, pulling him closer, gasping his name, losing herself completely. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "I should go," he said, sounding pained. "You should. If I stay, I'm not leaving until morning." "I know." He pulled back, looked at her, and she saw the exact moment he made his decision. "Screw it," he muttered, and kissed her again. He didn't leave until morning, and by the time the sun came up, Elena Cross was in so far over her head there was no climbing out. She didn't want to. The first week of their secret was easier than Elena expected, which should have been her first warning that it wouldn't last. At the office, nothing changed. She arrived early, left late, managed Vincent's calendar with the same meticulous efficiency she always had. They were professional to the point of being cold. No lingering glances, no private smiles, nothing that would give them away. If anything, she was more careful now, hyper-aware of every interaction, every word, every second they spent in the same room. But the nights were different. Vincent would text her around 6, always the same message. "My place or yours?" And she'd respond. And 3 hours later, she'd be tangled up in his sheets or hers, learning exactly what it felt like when someone paid attention to every sound she made, every reaction, every preference. He was intense in bed the same way he was intense everywhere else, focused, demanding, and maddeningly good at reading what she needed before she knew she needed it. They'd talk after, sprawled out and boneless, and that's when she'd get glimpses of the man underneath the reputation. He told her about growing up in his father's shadow, about the weight of expectations and the cost of the name he carried. She told him about her parents' ugly divorce, about learning early that safety meant staying small and quiet and out of the way. "You're not small," he'd said one night, trailing his fingers down her spine. "You just convinced yourself you were. I'm 5'4". "You know what I mean." She did. By Friday, she'd spent 4 nights at his apartment, a sprawling penthouse in Tribeca that looked like it had been decorated by someone with more money than interest in personal touches. Everything was expensive and impersonal. Leather furniture, abstract art, floor-to-ceiling windows with views that probably cost more than her annual salary. "You don't really live here, do you?" she'd asked the first time he'd brought her back. "What do you mean?" "I mean it looks like a hotel. There's nothing personal, no photos, no books, nothing that says you actually exist in this space." He'd looked around like he was seeing it for the first time. "I guess I don't think about it much." "Where do you actually feel at home?" He'd pulled her close, kissed the top of her head. Still figuring that out. Now it was Friday night again, exactly 1 week since the text that had started everything, and Elena was sitting on his couch wearing one of his shirts, watching him pour whiskey into 2 glasses. "We should talk," he said, handing her one. Her stomach dropped. That's never a good start to a conversation. "It's not bad. It's just, we need to establish some things." He sat next to her, close enough that their knees touched. "This week has been good, better than good, but we can't keep doing this without a plan." "What kind of plan?" "The kind where we decide what we're doing, where this is going, what we tell people, and when." She sipped her whiskey, the burn grounding her. "What do you want to tell people?" "The truth. Eventually. But not yet." He ran a hand through his hair, a rare tell that he was less composed than he seemed. "The people I work with, the families I deal with, they operate on loyalty and leverage. If they know you matter to me, you become a target. I need time to make sure that doesn't happen." "How much time?" "I don't know. A few months, maybe. Long enough for me to shift some things, shore up some alliances, make it clear that touching you means going through me." He looked at her. "Can you live with that? Keeping this quiet for a while longer?" She thought about it, really thought about it. "I can, but I need to know this is real for you, that I'm not just convenient." His jaw tightened. "You think that's what this is?" "I don't know what this is. We've been sleeping together for a week, Vincent. People do that all the time without it meaning anything." He set his glass down, turned to face her fully. "Do you want to know what I did today?" She blinked at the subject change. "What?" "I had a meeting with the Calabrese family. Very important, very delicate. I was supposed to negotiate a new partnership, something that could bring in 8 figures over the next 2 years. And the entire time, 2 hours, Elena, I kept thinking about whether you'd eaten lunch because I noticed you skipped breakfast this morning. Her throat went tight. I don't do casual, he continued. I don't do convenient. When I want something, I commit to it completely, and I want you. Not for a week, not for a few months. I want you until you decide you don't want me anymore. And even then, I'll probably spend the rest of my life trying to change your mind. That's insane. Probably. He touched her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. But it's true. She kissed him, hard and desperate, and he responded immediately, pulling her into his lap. They'd been doing this all week, falling into each other like they were both starving, but it still felt new every time, still made her heart race and her brain shut off. When they broke apart, his hands were in her hair and her fingers were twisted in his shirt. Stay the weekend, he said against her mouth. I don't have clothes. Wear mine. I like you in my shirts. I need to go home at some point. Sunday. Stay until Sunday. She should have said no, should have maintained some distance, some sense of self-preservation. But his hands were warm and his eyes were honest, and she was so tired of denying herself things. Okay, she whispered. He smiled, rare, genuine, and kissed her again. They spent Saturday being aggressively normal. Vincent made breakfast, which was surprising because she'd assumed someone like him didn't know how to cook. But he moved around the kitchen with the same confidence he brought to everything else, and 20 minutes later she was eating the best omelet of her life. Where did you learn to cook? She asked. My grandmother. She said a man who couldn't feed himself was useless. He refilled her coffee. She also said a man who couldn't feed his woman was worse than useless, but that's a different conversation. His woman? He looked at her over the rim of his cup. You have a problem with that? Depends on the context. The context is I'm old-fashioned about certain things, possessive about others. If that's going to be an issue, tell me now. She should have been annoyed, should have given him a speech about autonomy and feminism and not being anyone's property. But the way he was looking at her, like she was something precious and dangerous and entirely his, made her stomach flip. Not an issue, she said. Good. They spent the afternoon walking through the city, which felt surreal because Vincent Moretti didn't strike her as someone who did things like casual walks. But he held her hand, bought her coffee from a cart, and pointed out buildings he owned like it was completely normal. You own half of Lower Manhattan, don't you? She said. Not half, maybe a third. That's not reassuring. He laughed. Most of it's legitimate. Real estate development, commercial properties. The rest? He shrugged. The rest pays better? Do I want to know? Probably not. They were cutting through Washington Square Park when Elena's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and groaned. Who is it? Vincent asked. My mother. You don't want to answer? Not even a little bit. Why not? Elena hesitated, then hit decline. We don't really talk, haven't for a few years. What happened? Nothing dramatic. She just made it very clear after the divorce that I reminded her too much of my father, and since she hated him, that meant she didn't particularly like being around me either, so I stopped trying. Vincent's expression darkened. That's not nothing, Elena. It is what it is. No, it's shitty parenting, she laughed despite herself. I'm fine, I've been fine for years. He stopped walking, pulled her close. You don't have to be fine all the time, you know, not with me. Something cracked open in her chest. I don't know how to be any other way. Then I'll teach you. He kissed her forehead, soft and careful. Come on. I know a place that makes the best cannoli in the city. That night, back at his apartment, Elena woke up at 2 a.m. to find Vincent's side of the bed empty. She pulled on his shirt and wandered out to the living room where she found him standing by the windows, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian. He saw her and held up one finger. 1 minute. She nodded and curled up on the couch, watching him. Even at 2 a.m., shirtless and barefoot, he radiated authority. Whatever conversation he was having, it wasn't good. His jaw was tight, his free hand clenched into a fist, and the words coming out of his mouth had an edge that made her glad she didn't understand them. Finally, he hung up. Everything okay? She asked. He looked at her for a long moment, then crossed the room and sat next to her. No, but it will be. What happened? Someone's moving against me. testing boundaries, seeing if I'll push back. Will you? I don't have a choice. He pulled her into his lap, arms tight around her. This is the part where you should probably run. I'm not running. Elena, I knew what you were when I sent that text, she said firmly. I knew you weren't a normal businessman with a normal life. I knew getting involved with you meant getting involved with all of this, so stop waiting for me to bail because I'm not going to. He looked at her like she was something rare and breakable. You're too good for this. Maybe, but I'm here anyway. He kissed her, slow and thorough, like he was trying to memorize the taste of her. When he pulled back, his eyes were dark. I need you to promise me something. What? If I ever tell you to leave, if I ever say it's not safe, that you need to go, you listen. No arguments, no questions. You just go. Her stomach twisted. Vincent, promise me, Elena. She didn't want to. Wanted to argue, to tell him she wouldn't abandon him just because things got dangerous. But the look on his face told her this wasn't negotiable. I promise, she said quietly. Thank you. They went back to bed, but she didn't sleep. She lay there with his arm around her waist, listening to his breathing even out, and wondered what the hell she'd gotten herself into. Sunday morning came too fast. Vincent drove her home around noon, and the 40-minute trip felt too short. She didn't want to go back to her tiny apartment, didn't want to spend the night alone after spending 2 days wrapped up in him. You okay? He asked as they pulled up outside her building. Yeah, just adjusting. To what? To the fact that I miss you already and you haven't even left yet. He smiled, reached over to tangle his fingers with hers. I'll see you tomorrow. At the office. Where we have to pretend this isn't happening. Where we have to be smart, he corrected. There's a difference. She knew he was right, didn't make it easier. Go, he said gently. I'll text you tonight. She got out of the car, watched him drive away, and felt the loss of him like a physical thing. Inside her apartment, everything felt too small, too quiet. She'd only been gone 2 days, but it felt like longer. Like she'd left as one person and come back as someone slightly different. Her phone buzzed. Vincent, miss you already? She smiled despite herself. Elena, Sap. Vincent, only for you. Monday hit like a freight train. Elena arrived at 7:30 to find Vincent's office already occupied and 3 men she'd never seen before waiting in the lobby. They looked expensive and dangerous. Tailored suits, cold eyes, the kind of stillness that came from knowing exactly how much damage you could do. Miss Cross, one of them said. Yes? We're here to see Mr. Moretti. He's expecting us. She checked the calendar. Nothing scheduled. I'll let him know you're here. She knocked once and entered Vincent's office without waiting for an answer. He was on the phone, but he looked up when she came in. They're here, she said quietly. He nodded, said something in Italian, and hung up. Send them in. And Elena? Yes? Close the door behind you and don't come back in until I call for you. Her stomach dropped. Is everything... I'm fine. Just do what I said. She left, sent the 3 men in, and spent the next hour trying not to panic. At 9:15, her phone buzzed with a text from Nicole. Nicole. Coffee? I need to hear all about your weekend. Elena hesitated, then responded. Elena. Can't today. Swamped at work. Nicole. Liar. You're avoiding me because you don't want to tell me you spent the entire weekend with your hot, scary boss. Elena. I don't know what you're talking about. Nicole. Sure you don't. Lunch tomorrow. No excuses. Before Elena could respond, Vincent's door opened and the 3 men filed out. They didn't look at her, didn't acknowledge her existence, just walked straight to the elevator and disappeared. 2 minutes later, her desk phone rang. Come in here, Vincent said, and hung up. She found him standing by the window, hands in his pockets, shoulders tense. What happened? She asked. Politics. He didn't turn around. Someone's trying to consolidate power and they want me to fall in line. And I told them to go to hell. Her heart sank. Is that smart? Probably not, but I'm not bowing to men who think they can intimidate me. He finally looked at her. This is going to get messy, Elena. I need you to be ready for that. Define messy. Pressure, surveillance, possibly threats, though I'll do everything I can to keep you out of it. You can't promise that. No, he admitted. I can't. She walked over to him, took his hand. Then we deal with it, together. He pulled her close, buried his face in her hair. You should leave me. Not happening. I'm serious. So am I. She pulled back enough to look at him. I told you I wasn't running. I meant it. He kissed her, hard and desperate, like he was trying to convince himself she was real. When he pulled away, his eyes were dark. If anything happens to you because of me, nothing's going to happen. You don't know that. Neither do you. She framed his face with her hands. Stop trying to push me away. It's not going to work. He laughed, sharp and humorless. You're stubborn. You like it. I do. He kissed her again, softer this time. Go back to your desk before I do something that'll get us both in trouble. She left reluctantly and spent the rest of the day fielding calls and managing crises while trying not to think about the look on Vincent's face when those men had left. That night, he texted her at 8. Vincent, my place, now. She didn't hesitate. When she arrived, he didn't say anything, just pulled her inside and kissed her like he needed her to breathe. They ended up on the couch, clothes half off, his hands everywhere, her name on his lips. I need you, he said against her mouth. You have me. I mean it, Elena. I need you to be okay. I need you to be safe. I am safe. I'm with you. He made a broken sound and kissed her harder, and she let him lose himself in her, let him take whatever he needed. Later, tangled together on the couch, he told her the truth. The families are fracturing, he said quietly. There's been a power vacuum since Castellano died, and everyone's trying to fill it. Some people think I should step up. Others think I'm too young, too American, not traditional enough. And a few think I should be removed entirely. Removed how? Use your imagination. Fear spiked through her. Vincent, I'm handling it. I have allies and I'm not easy to kill. But it's going to be tense for a while. Dangerous. He looked at her. If you want out, now's the time. How many times do I have to tell you I'm not leaving? Until I believe you. She straddled his lap, forcing him to meet her eyes. I am not leaving you. Not because it's dangerous. Not because it's complicated. Not because you keep trying to give me an exit. I'm here, Vincent. Deal with it. He stared at her, something shifting in his expression. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. I know. He laughed, surprised, and pulled her down into a kiss that tasted like relief. The next 2 weeks were a blur of work, stolen nights, and escalating tension. Vincent was busier than usual, taking more meetings, making more calls, and coming home later and later. Elena tried not to worry, but it was hard when she could see the strain in his face, the weight he was carrying. Talk to me, she said one night, curled up next to him in bed. About what? Whatever's eating you alive. He was quiet for a long time. I'm trying to build something that lasts, something legitimate that doesn't depend on violence and fear. But the people I work with, the families, they don't want that. They want things to stay the way they've always been. So change it. It's not that simple. Why not? Because the second I step too far out of line, I become a liability, and liabilities get eliminated. She propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at him. Then find a way to make yourself indispensable. Make it so they need you more than they want you gone. You make it sound easy. I didn't say it was easy. I said it was possible. She traced the line of his jaw. You're the smartest, most ruthless person I've ever met. If anyone can do it, it's you. He pulled her down, kissed her slow and deep. You have too much faith in me. Or you don't have enough in yourself. He didn't argue. 3 days later, everything changed. Elena was at her desk when her phone rang. Not her work line, her personal cell. The number was blocked. She answered. Hello? Miss Cross? A man's voice, unfamiliar, cold. You need to stop seeing Vincent Moretti. Her blood went cold. Who is this? Someone who's trying to help you. He's dangerous, Miss Cross. The longer you stay with him, the more likely you are to get hurt. Walk away while you still can. I don't... The line went dead. Elena sat frozen, phone still pressed to her ear, heart hammering. Someone knew. Someone knew about her and Vincent, and they'd just threatened her. She stood on shaking legs, walked into Vincent's office without knocking. He looked up, saw her face, and was on his feet immediately. What happened? Someone just called me. They told me to stop seeing you. His expression went lethal. What did they say? Exactly. She repeated the conversation word for word, and with every sentence, Vincent's jaw got tighter. Fuck, he said quietly. Who was it? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. He pulled out his phone, made a call, started speaking in rapid Italian. Elena stood there, listening to him tear into whoever was on the other end, and felt the first real flicker of fear. This was real. The danger, the threats, the violence, all of it was real, and it was coming for her now. When Vincent hung up, he looked at her with an expression she'd never seen before. Raw fear. You're not going home tonight, he said. Vincent, you're staying with me until I figure out who made that call and why. Non-negotiable. You can't just... Elena. He crossed the room, took her face in his hands. Someone threatened you. That means they know about us, and they're trying to use you to get to me. I will burn this entire city down before I let anyone hurt you, but I need you to work with me. Please. She saw it then, the fear underneath the control, the desperation he was trying to hide. Okay, she said. Okay. He kissed her forehead, pulled her close, and she felt him shaking. That night, she moved into Vincent's apartment with a single bag of clothes and a growing sense that her life had just fundamentally changed. And she was right. Because by morning, Vincent had a name, an address, and a plan. And Elena Cross was about to learn exactly what it meant to be loved by a man like Vincent Moretti. The name Vincent got was Marco Salerno, a mid-level enforcer for the Rossini family who'd been making noise about moving up. The address was a walk-up in Astoria. And the plan, as Vincent explained it over coffee at 6 in the morning, was simple and terrifying. I'm going to have a conversation with him, Vincent said, his voice flat and cold in a way that made Elena's stomach twist. He's going to tell me who sent him to call you, and then I'm going to make sure he understands what happens when someone threatens what's mine. Elena wrapped her hands around her mug, trying to absorb the warmth. She hadn't slept. Every time she'd closed her eyes, she'd heard that voice on the phone. Walk away while you still can. What if he doesn't talk? He'll talk. Vincent said it with such certainty that she didn't doubt him. And then what? Then I deal with whoever's pulling his strings. Deal with how? He looked at her across the table, and she saw the answer in his eyes before he said it. However I need to. She should have been horrified, should have told him to call the police, to handle this legally, to do literally anything other than what he was planning. But she'd seen enough of his world to know that the law didn't apply here. The rules were different, older, enforced with violence instead of courtrooms. I'm coming with you, she said. Absolutely not. Vincent, no. This isn't like the warehouse with Tony. This is going to get ugly, and I will not have you anywhere near it. Someone threatened me. I have a right to know why. And you will know, after I handle it. He reached across the table, took her hand. I need you to trust me on this. Stay here. Marco's outside. He'll make sure no one gets near the building. I'll be back in a few hours. You can't promise that. I can, and I am. He stood, leaned down to kiss her forehead. Lock the door behind me. Don't answer it for anyone except Marco. If something feels wrong, you call me immediately. This whole thing feels wrong. I know, but I'm going to fix it. He left before she could argue, and Elena spent the next 4 hours pacing his apartment like a caged animal, checking her phone every 30 seconds and trying not to imagine all the ways this could go catastrophically wrong. At 10:15, her phone rang. Vincent. She answered before the first ring finished. Are you okay? I'm fine. It's handled. The relief was so intense it made her dizzy. What happened? I'll tell you when I get home. An hour, maybe less. Vincent, I love you. The line went dead. Elena stood frozen in the middle of his living room, phone still pressed to her ear, brain stuck on the 3 words he'd just thrown at her like they were casual. I love you. He'd said it like it was obvious, like it was a fact, simple and undeniable, and not something that required build-up or perfect timing or any of the things she'd always thought came before those words. Her hands were shaking. She set the phone down, sat on the couch, and tried to process what had just happened. Vincent Moretti loved her. He'd said it over the phone in the middle of a crisis, right after threatening someone's life, and somehow that made it more real than if he'd planned some perfect moment. When he walked through the door 50 minutes later, she was still sitting in the same spot. He looked tired, his shirt untucked, a bruise forming along his jaw. But he was whole, alive. "Hey," he said. "You're hurt." "It's nothing." Salerno got a swing in before I convinced him talking was a better option. He crossed to the bar, poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey, and downed it in one swallow. Elena stood, walked over to him. "What did he say?" Vincent refilled his glass but didn't drink. He was hired by someone in the Rossini family, not Rossini himself, but one of his captains, a guy named DeMarco, who thinks I'm getting too powerful and wants to remind me I'm not untouchable. "Calling you was supposed to rattle me, make me sloppy." "Did it work?" He looked at her, something dark and possessive in his eyes. "It made me furious. There's a difference." "What did you do to him?" "Salerno broke 2 of his fingers and told him if he ever looked at you, spoke to you, or thought about you again, I'd make sure he didn't have hands to swing at anyone." He said it matter-of-factly, like he was describing a business transaction. "Then I made some calls. DeMarco's being handled as we speak." "Handled how?" "He's losing his territory, his crew, and his standing in the family. By tomorrow he'll be lucky if Rossini lets him keep his life. After that, he's not my problem." Elena processed that. "You destroyed his entire operation because he told someone to call me." "Yes." "That's insane. That's the cost of threatening you." Vincent set his glass down, turned to face her fully. "I meant what I said on the phone." Her heart stuttered. "Which part?" "All of it. But especially the part where I told you I love you." He said it quietly, like the words still surprised him. "I know it's fast. I know we've only been doing this for a few weeks, but I've spent my entire adult life being careful, being strategic, never letting anyone close enough to matter. And then you sent me that text, and everything I thought I knew about what I wanted went out the window." She couldn't breathe. "Vincent, you don't have to say it back. I'm not asking you to. I just need you to know that this isn't casual for me. It never was." "I know." She stepped closer, reached up to touch the bruise on his jaw. "I've known since the first night you showed up at my door. You don't do anything halfway." "Neither do you. You're just better at pretending." She wanted to argue, but he was right. She'd spent her whole life pretending to be smaller, quieter, less than what she was. And somewhere in the last few weeks, she'd stopped pretending with him. "I love you too," she said, and the words felt huge and terrifying and completely true. "I'm pretty sure I've loved you since you paid for Tony's sister's surgery and then threatened to take it back if he ran. It was such a you thing to do, violent and generous at the same time." He laughed, surprised and rough. "That's when you knew?" "That's when I admitted it to myself. I think I knew before then." He kissed her, and it felt different than all the other times. Slower, heavier, like a promise. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "Move in with me." "I'm already here." "Officially. Bring your stuff, give up your lease, make this real." Her heart was racing. "That's a big step." "I know, but I don't want you going back to that apartment. I don't want you anywhere I can't protect you. And selfishly, I don't want to spend another night without you." She thought about her tiny studio with its bad heating and thin walls. Thought about going back to being alone, to pretending this thing with Vincent was something she could compartmentalize and control. "Okay," she said. His eyes went wide. "Yeah? Yeah, but I'm keeping some of my furniture. Your place looks like a hospital." He grinned, bright and unguarded. "Deal." They spent the rest of the day making lists of things she'd need to move, calling her landlord, and arguing about whether she really needed to bring her collection of thrift store lamps. "They're hideous," Vincent said, looking at a photo she'd shown him. "They're character. They're fire hazards. You're a snob. I have standards. Your apartment has 0 personality. It has minimalist elegance. It has nothing. It's sterile." He pulled her onto his lap, kissed her neck. "Then make it less sterile. Bring your ugly lamps. Bring whatever you want. Just be here." She melted against him, feeling the tension of the last 24 hours finally drain away. "I can't believe this is my life now. Good or bad?" "Terrifying, but good." "I'll take it." That night, they ordered takeout and watched a movie neither of them paid attention to, too caught up in the fact that this was real now. Official. She was moving in with Vincent Moretti, and somehow that felt more permanent than anything they'd said or done before. The next 2 weeks were chaos in the best way. Elena packed up her apartment with help from Nicole, who spent the entire time giving her knowing looks and asking inappropriate questions about Vincent's bedroom skills. "I'm not discussing this with you," Elena said for the 5th time, shoving books into a box. "So it's good. I knew it. You have that glow." "I do not have a glow." "You absolutely do. It's the 'I'm having regular orgasms with a dangerous man' glow, very specific." Elena threw a pillow at her. "You're the worst." "I'm the best and you know it." Nicole flopped onto the bed, grinning. "I can't believe you're moving in with him. 2 months ago you were convinced he didn't know you existed." "He did a good job hiding it." "And now you're what? Playing house with a guy who probably has bodies buried somewhere?" Elena stopped packing. "Don't say that." "Why? It's probably true." "Because it makes it sound like I'm okay with that, and I—" She stopped, realizing she didn't know how to finish that sentence. Nicole sat up, her expression turning serious. "You love him." "I do." "Even knowing what he is?" "Especially knowing what he is." Elena sat on the edge of the bed, trying to find the right words. "He's not a good person, Nicole. I know that. But he's good to me. He's honest with me. And when he looks at me, I don't feel invisible anymore." Nicole reached over, squeezed her hand. "Then I'm happy for you. Terrified, but happy. Join the club." Moving day was a production. Vincent sent 3 guys with a truck to handle the furniture, and by noon, Elena's entire life was packed into boxes and loaded up. She stood in her empty apartment one last time, looking at the space that had been hers for 3 years, and felt nothing but relief to be leaving it. Vincent's place, their place now, was transformed by the time she arrived. He'd cleared space in the closet, emptied drawers in the bedroom, and somehow acquired a bookshelf that was already assembled and waiting for her books. "You built this?" she asked, surprised. "I had it delivered. I'm not completely useless." He wrapped his arms around her from behind, chin resting on her shoulder. "You like it?" "I love it." "Good, because there's more." He led her to the second bedroom, which she'd assumed was his office. Instead, she found it set up as a reading room. Comfortable chair, good lighting, and a small desk by the window. "I know you like to read," he said, sounding almost uncertain. "Thought you might want a space that's just yours." She turned to look at him, throat tight. "You did this for me?" "I want you to feel at home here, not like you're just staying in my place." She kissed him, hard and grateful, and spent the rest of the afternoon unpacking while Vincent worked in the living room, both of them orbiting each other in a way that felt natural and right. That night, lying in bed with her head on his chest, Elena finally let herself believe this was real. "What are you thinking?" Vincent asked, his hand tracing patterns on her back. "That I'm happy. Actually happy, not just okay." "Good." He kissed the top of her head. "You deserve to be." "So do you." He didn't respond to that, just held her tighter. At work, they maintained the same professional distance, but it was harder now. Harder to watch him in meetings and not think about the way he'd held her that morning. Harder to keep her voice neutral when he asked her to stay late, knowing it meant they'd leave together. Harder to pretend she didn't notice the way his eyes tracked her when he thought no one was looking. 3 weeks after she moved in, Vincent's cousin showed up at the office. Elena knew who he was immediately. Luca Moretti, 35, Vincent's second in command, and the only family member he talked about with anything resembling affection. He was shorter than Vincent, stockier, with the same dark eyes and a smile that looked friendly but wasn't. "You must be Elena," Luca said, extending a hand. "I've heard a lot about you." She shook it, trying not to show her surprise. "All good things, I hope." Vincent doesn't waste time on bad things. He glanced at Vincent's closed door. "He in there?" "Yes. He's on a call, but he should be done soon." "I'll wait." Luca settled into one of the chairs across from her desk, studying her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "So you're the one who finally got through to him?" "I don't know what you mean." "Vincent's been married to his work for as long as I've known him. Didn't think anyone could change that. But here you are." Elena kept her expression neutral. "I'm just his assistant." Luca laughed. "Sure you are. And I'm just a guy who likes pasta." Before Elena could respond, Vincent's door opened. He took one look at Luca and sighed. "What do you want?" "Family dinner," Sunday. Nonna's insisting, and you know how she gets. I'm busy. Bring Elena. Vincent's expression went carefully blank. No. Why not? Everyone knows about her anyway. Elena's stomach dropped. Everyone knows? Luca looked between them, realization dawning. Oh, you haven't told her. Luca, Vincent said, his voice dangerously quiet. Get in my office. Now. Luca held up his hands, standing. My bad. He disappeared into Vincent's office, and Vincent followed, but not before giving Elena a look that promised they'd talk later. She sat at her desk, mind racing. Everyone knew? How was that possible when they'd been so careful? 20 minutes later, Luca left with a tight smile and a wave. Vincent appeared in his doorway immediately after. Elena, in here. She followed him in, closing the door behind her. What did he mean, everyone knows? Vincent ran a hand through his hair, looking more frustrated than she'd seen him in weeks. I was going to tell you. Tell me what? That I told my family about us. About you. Last week. She stared at him. You told them? I had to. Things are getting more stable, and I didn't want you to be a secret anymore. I wanted them to know you're important to me, that you're off limits. And you didn't think to mention this to me? I was going to. I just needed to make sure they understood the rules first. What rules? That no one talks to you, approaches you, or involves you in family business without going through me first. That you're mine, and anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me directly. He stepped closer. I was protecting you, Elena. By making decisions about my life without telling me? By making sure my family knows I'm serious about you before anyone got stupid ideas about using you against me. She wanted to be angry, wanted to tell him he should have asked her first, should have given her a choice, but she also understood why he'd done it. In his world, hesitation got people killed. I would have said yes, she said quietly, if you'd asked me if you could tell them. I know, but I couldn't risk waiting, not after the thing with DeMarco. She closed her eyes, took a breath. So what now? I'm supposed to go to family dinner and meet everyone? Only if you want to. I can make an excuse. No. She opened her eyes, met his gaze. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. I'll go. Relief flooded his expression. You sure? Terrified but sure. He pulled her into his arms and she let herself lean into him. They're going to love you. You can't promise that. My grandmother already does. I showed her a picture. Elena pulled back to look at him. You showed your grandmother a picture of me? She asked. I couldn't say no to Nonna. Despite everything, Elena laughed. You're a terrible liar. Only with you. Sunday came faster than Elena wanted. She changed outfits 4 times before settling on a simple dress that felt appropriate for meeting your boyfriend's Italian family without trying too hard. Vincent watched her stress from the bed, looking amused. You know they're going to love you regardless of what you wear, right? He said. You don't know that. I do. You're smart, beautiful, and you make me happy. That's all Nonna cares about. What about everyone else? They'll fall in line. He said it with such certainty that she almost believed him. The drive to his grandmother's house in Brooklyn took 30 minutes, and Elena spent the entire time trying not to panic. Vincent held her hand the whole way, thumb rubbing circles on her wrist. Breathe, he said as they pulled up to a modest brownstone. I'm breathing. You're hyperventilating. Same thing. He smiled, leaned over to kiss her. I love you. Remember that. I love you too. But if your family hates me, I'm blaming you. Deal. They walked up the steps together, and before Vincent could knock, the door flew open. A tiny woman, couldn't have been more than 5 feet tall, stood there with sharp dark eyes and a smile that took up her whole face. Vincent! She pulled him down into a hug, rapid-fire Italian pouring out of her. He responded in kind, and Elena caught her name in the stream of words. The woman, Nonna, clearly, turned to her, and Elena braced herself. So you're Elena, she said in heavily accented English. You're prettier than the picture. Thank you, Mrs. Moretti. It's nice to meet you. None of that Mrs. business. You call me Nonna. She pulled Elena into a hug that was surprisingly strong for someone so small. Come, everyone's waiting. She ushered them inside, and Elena found herself in a house that was the complete opposite of Vincent's sterile apartment. Every surface was covered with photos, knickknacks, and evidence of a family that actually lived there. The smell of garlic and tomatoes filled the air, and voices carried from the kitchen. Vincent kept his hand on the small of her back as Nonna led them through to the dining room, where at least 15 people were gathered around a massive table. Conversation stopped when they entered. "Everyone," Nonna announced, "this is Elena, Vincent's girl. Be nice or I hit you with the spoon." There was a beat of silence, and then someone laughed, and the tension broke. People started introducing themselves, cousins, aunts, uncles, family friends, until Elena's head was spinning with names she'd never remember. Luca appeared at her elbow. "Told you everyone knows. You could have warned me there'd be this many people. Where's the fun in that?" Dinner was loud, chaotic, and overwhelming in the best way. Elena found herself seated between Vincent and his younger cousin Sophia, who spent the entire meal asking her questions about work, her favorite books, and whether Vincent was as bossy at home as he was everywhere else. "Worse," Elena said, and Vincent shot her a look that made her laugh. Across the table, Nonna watched them with open satisfaction. After dinner, while the women cleared the table, Elena tried to help but was shooed away. Vincent was pulled into the study by his uncle. Elena found herself alone in the living room with Nonna. "Sit," the older woman said, patting the couch next to her. Elena sat. "You love him," Nonna said. It wasn't a question. "I do." "Good. He needs someone who sees past all the—" She waved her hand vaguely. "The business? The reputation? He's a good boy underneath." "I know." Nonna studied her with those sharp eyes. "You're not afraid of him?" "Sometimes I am, but not in the way you mean." "Smart girl." Nonna patted her knee. "You'll be good for him. He needs good." Before Elena could respond, Vincent appeared in the doorway. "Nonna, stop interrogating her." "I'm not interrogating. We're talking. Girl talk." "Right." He extended a hand to Elena. "We should go." They said their goodbyes, which took another 20 minutes because apparently leaving an Italian family gathering was a process, and finally made it back to the car. "That wasn't so bad, was it?" Vincent asked as they pulled away. "Your family is wonderful. Overwhelming, but wonderful. Nonna likes you. How can you tell?" "She told me to marry you before someone smarter steals you away." Elena's breath caught. "She said that?" "In Italian, but yes." He glanced at her. "She's not wrong." Her heart was pounding. "Vincent, I'm not proposing. Not yet. But I'm going to, eventually, just so you know." She didn't know what to say to that, so she just laced her fingers through his and held on. Back at the apartment, they fell into bed exhausted and content. Elena curled into Vincent's side, listening to his heartbeat slow. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For bringing me into your life, your real life, not just the version you show at the office." He kissed her forehead. "Thank you for staying. I'm not going anywhere." "Promise?" "Promise." And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Elena Cross fell asleep feeling like she belonged somewhere, like she was home. 3 months into living together, Elena discovered that Vincent Moretti talked in his sleep. Not coherently, mostly fragments in Italian, the occasional name, sometimes just sounds that could have been words or could have been nothing. But it happened almost every night, usually around 3 in the morning, and it was how she learned he had nightmares more often than he'd ever admit while awake. She'd tried asking him about it once, carefully, over breakfast. "You were restless last night," she'd said, pouring coffee. He'd looked up from his phone, expression neutral. "Was I?" "You were talking. In Italian." "What did I say?" "I don't know. I don't speak Italian." He'd gone back to his phone. Probably nothing important. But it was important. She could tell by the way his jaw tightened, by the shadows under his eyes that no amount of coffee could erase. Whatever he dreamed about, it wasn't nothing. She didn't push. Had learned by now that Vincent would tell her things when he was ready, and pushing only made him shut down. So she just started staying awake when the nightmares hit, hand on his chest until his breathing evened out, and pretended not to notice when he woke up shaking. Work had settled into a rhythm that felt almost normal. They'd gotten good at the professional distance thing, so good that Elena sometimes forgot they went home to the same apartment until Vincent would catch her eye across a meeting and she'd see the heat there, the promise of what came after. The rest of the office had no idea. Or if they did, they were smart enough not to mention it. It was a Tuesday in late November when everything shifted again. Elena was at her desk, reviewing contracts, when a woman she'd never seen before walked into the office. Mid-30s, expensive suit, the kind of confidence that came from old money and private schools. She walked straight past Elena's desk without acknowledging her existence and knocked on Vincent's door. "He's in a meeting," Elena started, but the woman was already pushing the door open. Elena stood, heart racing, and followed her in. Vincent was on a call, but he looked up when the door opened. His expression went from irritation to something Elena couldn't quite read when he saw who it was. "I'll call you back," he said into the phone, and hung up. "Gabriella?" "Vincent." The woman smiled, sharp and knowing. "It's been a while." "Not long enough." He stood, buttoning his jacket. "What do you want?" "To talk. Privately." She glanced at Elena like she was furniture. "Unless your assistant needs to stay?" Vincent's eyes met Elena's, and she saw the apology there. "Give us a minute, Miss Cross." Elena left, closing the door behind her, and spent the next 20 minutes trying not to imagine who the hell Gabriella was, and why Vincent looked at her like she was a problem he'd thought he'd already solved. When the woman finally emerged, she was smiling. She paused at Elena's desk, looking her over with open assessment. "You're the new girl," she said. "I'm his assistant." "Right. And I'm just visiting." She leaned in, voice dropping. "Word of advice? Men like Vincent don't change. Whatever he's promised you, whatever you think this is, he'll get bored eventually. He always does." Elena kept her expression neutral. "Was there something else you needed, or are you finished?" Gabriella laughed. "I like you. More spine than the last one." She straightened, pulling on leather gloves. "Tell Vincent I'll be in touch." She left, and Elena sat there trying to process what had just happened. Vincent appeared in his doorway a minute later. "Elena?" She looked up. "Come in here." She followed him back into his office. He'd poured himself a drink despite it being 11 in the morning, which told her more than any explanation would. "Who was that?" she asked. "Someone from a long time ago." That's not an answer. He downed half the whiskey, set the glass down. "Her name is Gabriella Rossini. We were engaged briefly about 6 years ago. It was arranged by our families, political alliance, that kind of thing. It lasted 3 months before I called it off." Elena's stomach dropped. "You were engaged?" "On paper, it was never real." "Did you love her?" "No, I barely liked her." "Then why?" "All right, because my father asked me to. Because it was good for business, because I didn't know how to say no to him back then." He looked at her, and she saw the frustration there. "It was a mistake, one I corrected as soon as I could." Elena sat down, trying to process this. "What does she want now?" "The Rossini family is restructuring. They want to rebuild the alliance, strengthen ties. She's here to feel out whether I'm open to negotiation." "And are you?" "Not the way she's hoping." He crossed to her, crouched down so they were eye level. "I need you to understand something. That part of my life, the arranged marriages and political alliances, I'm done with it. I make my own choices now, and I choose you." "She said you'd get bored, that you always do." His jaw tightened. "She doesn't know anything about me. Hasn't for years. But she knew you well enough to get engaged to you. She knew the version of me I was pretending to be. You know the real one." He took her hands. "I'm not bored, Elena. I'm not going to get bored. And I'm sure as hell not interested in whatever games Gabriella's trying to play." She wanted to believe him. Did believe him mostly. But doubt was a persistent thing, and Gabriella's words had landed exactly where they were meant to. "Okay," she said quietly. "That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say? That I'm thrilled your ex-fiancé showed up to remind me you have a whole history I know nothing about? That I'm totally fine with the fact that she's beautiful and connected and probably exactly the kind of woman you're supposed to end up with? You're the woman I'm supposed to end up with." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do." He stood, pulled her to her feet. "I knew it the night you texted me. I knew it when you didn't run after seeing what I did to Salerno, I knew it when my grandmother told me you were the one, and I realized she was right. So yes, Elena, I know. She wanted to argue, but the certainty in his voice made it impossible. I need you to trust me, he said. Can you do that? I'm trying. Then keep trying, because I'm not going anywhere, and neither is she unless I make her. That night, they didn't talk about Gabriella. They went home, ordered dinner, and pretended everything was normal. But the tension was there, sitting between them like a third presence, and Elena hated it. She was loading the dishwasher when Vincent came up behind her, arms wrapping around her waist. Stop thinking so loud, he murmured against her neck. I'm not. You've been quiet all night. That means you're in your head about something. She turned in his arms, looked up at him. Do you have any other ex-fiancés I should know about? No, Gabriella was the only one. What about girlfriends? A few, nothing serious. Define serious. He studied her face. You want the full list? I want to know what I'm competing with. You're not competing with anyone. He cupped her face. But if it'll make you feel better, I'll tell you. There was a woman named Marie when I was 25. Lasted about 8 months before she realized I wasn't going to leave the family business for her. A couple of short things after that, nothing worth mentioning. And then Gabriella, which was a disaster from start to finish. After that, I didn't date anyone for almost 4 years. Too much work, too much risk. And then you showed up and made me reconsider everything. What about after me? There's no after you. This is it, Elena. You're it. The words should have been romantic, should have made her melt. Instead, they scared her. You can't know that, she said. Why not? Because people change, feelings change. What if you wake up one day and realize you want someone who fits into your world better? Someone who knows the rules, who won't ask you to explain every meeting or translate every conversation. Then I'll explain and translate until you don't need me to anymore. He kissed her, slow and thorough. You want to know what I see when I look at you? What? Someone who walked into my world knowing exactly what it was and chose to stay anyway. Someone who calls me on my bullshit, who doesn't let me hide, who makes me want to be better than I am. You think Gabriella did that? She wanted the name, the status, the power. She didn't want me. And I do? You're here, aren't you? She didn't have an answer for that. Just kissed him until the doubt quieted enough to breathe through. Gabriella didn't go away. Over the next 2 weeks, she showed up 3 more times, always unannounced, always with some excuse about business or family connections, and every time Vincent would have Elena leave while they talked, which made it worse because her imagination filled in all the blanks. You need to tell her to stop coming here, Elena said after the 4th visit. They were in bed, his arm around her, her head on his chest. It was late, past midnight, and neither of them could sleep. I have, Vincent said. She's not listening. Then make her listen. It's not that simple. The Rossini family is powerful, and I can't afford to burn that bridge completely. Not right now. So what, you're just going to let her keep showing up whenever she wants? I'm handling it. How? He was quiet for a long moment. I'm working on a deal that'll give me enough leverage to tell them all to back off without it starting a war. But it takes time. How much time? A few more weeks. Maybe a month. Elena pulled away, sat up. A month of her coming to your office, looking at me like I'm nothing, reminding everyone that you two have history? Elena, do you know what she said to me today? He sat up too, eyes sharp. What did she say? She asked how long I thought this would last. You and me. She said you had a pattern, and I should be smart enough to see it. Vincent's expression went dark. She had no right. But what if she's right? Elena hated how small her voice sounded. What if I'm just the current version of whatever you're looking for, and eventually you'll realize I'm not enough? Stop. He grabbed her hands, pulled her close. You're letting her get in your head, which is exactly what she wants. She's trying to make you doubt this, doubt us, because if she can break us apart, she wins. Wins what? Me. The alliance. Whatever the hell she's actually after. He looked at her, intense and focused. I love you. Not because you're convenient, not because you're here, but because you make me feel like a person instead of just a name or a reputation. And I need you to believe that. She wanted to so badly it hurt. I'm trying, she whispered. Then let me help. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her mouth. Tell me what you need. I need you to make her go away. I will. I promise. He kept that promise 3 days later in the most Vincent way possible. Elena was at her desk when Gabriella walked in, same as always. But this time, Vincent was ready. He appeared in his doorway before she could knock. We're done with these visits, he said, his voice carrying across the office. Gabriella stopped, turned. Excuse me? You heard me. Whatever game you're playing, it's over. I'm not interested in rebuilding the alliance. I'm not interested in negotiating, and I'm sure as hell not interested in you. Vincent, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. You're the one who keeps showing up uninvited, making my assistant uncomfortable, and wasting everyone's time. He walked closer, and Elena saw the shift in his posture, the subtle threat. I've been polite because of our families, but my patience has limits, and you just hit them. Gabriella glanced at Elena, then back at Vincent. This is about her? This is about you not taking no for an answer. She's going to ruin you. You know that, right? She's not one of us. She doesn't understand the rules, the expectations. Eventually, you'll have to choose between her and the family, and we both know which one you'll pick. You're right, Vincent said calmly. I will have to choose, and I already did. I chose her. Now get out. The office had gone silent. Everyone was watching, pretending not to, but absolutely riveted. Gabriella's face went hard. You're making a mistake. Maybe. But it's my mistake to make. He held the door open. Goodbye, Gabriella. She left without another word, spine rigid, heels clicking sharply on the floor. Vincent closed the door, looked at Elena. She stared at him, heart pounding. He crossed to her desk, leaned down, and kissed her in front of everyone. When he pulled back, she was breathless. What are you doing? Making sure everyone knows exactly where I stand. He straightened, raised his voice. In case anyone missed it, Elena Cross is not just my assistant. She's with me. Anyone who has a problem with that can talk to me directly. The office stayed silent for 3 seconds, and then someone, she thought it was David from accounting, started clapping. Others joined in, and suddenly the whole floor was applauding. Elena's face went hot. Vincent, come on. He took her hand, pulled her toward his office. We need to talk. Inside, door closed, she rounded on him. You just told everyone we're together. I did. We agreed to keep it quiet. That was before Gabriella started making you doubt us. Before I realized keeping this secret was hurting you more than protecting you. He pulled her close. I don't want to hide you anymore, Elena. I want everyone to know you're mine. You can't just decide that without asking me. You're right. I should have asked first. But I saw the way she was looking at you, talking to you, and I couldn't let it continue. He touched her face. Are you angry? She thought about it, really thought about it. No, terrified, but not angry. Good, because I already called my lawyer to update my will. Her eyes went wide. What? If something happens to me, you're taken care of. The apartment, the accounts, all of it. I made sure of it this morning. Vincent, that's insane. We're not even married? Not yet, but we will be. He said it like it was inevitable. And in the meantime, I want you protected. She couldn't breathe. You can't just plan our entire future without talking to me. I'm not planning it. I'm telling you what I want. You can still say no. To what? Marriage? Security? You rewriting your will? To all of it, to any of it. He held her gaze. But I'm hoping you won't. She should have been overwhelmed. Should have told him to slow down, to stop making these huge decisions like they were simple. But instead, she just kissed him. You're crazy, she said against his mouth. About you? Absolutely. They stayed in his office for another hour talking through what came next, how they'd handle the office knowing, what they'd tell his family, though Nona had apparently known from the start, and how to navigate the inevitable gossip. People are going to have opinions, Vincent warned. Let them. Some of those opinions will be ugly. I don't care. He smiled. You're tougher than I gave you credit for. I have to be. You're exhausting. I know. He kissed her. I love you. I love you too. even when you're making unilateral decisions about our future. I'll try to consult you more. You'd better. That night, they went to dinner at a restaurant Vincent had been trying to get reservations at for months. Apparently, being publicly in a relationship came with perks, because the maitre d' greeted them by name and led them to a private table. Did you pay him off? Elena asked as they sat. I might have mentioned I was bringing someone special. That's not an answer, he grinned. Order whatever you want. Tonight's a celebration. Of what? You, me. The fact that I don't have to pretend you're just my assistant anymore. She reached across the table, took his hand. You know this doesn't change anything at work, right? I'm still going to do my job. I know, you're too professional to let this affect your work. It's one of the things I love about you. What are the other things? You want the full list? We have time. He spent the next 20 minutes telling her, and by the time their food arrived, Elena was smiling so hard her face hurt. Walking back to the car, Vincent's arm around her shoulders, Elena felt something settle in her chest. The doubt that had been eating at her since Gabriella showed up was gone, replaced by something steadier. What are you thinking? Vincent asked. That I'm happy. Really, genuinely happy. Good. You deserve to be. So do you. He pulled her closer. I am. More than I've been in years. They got home just before midnight, and Elena was exhausted in the best way. She changed into one of Vincent's shirts, her favorite, the soft gray one that smelled like him, and climbed into bed. Vincent joined her a few minutes later, pulling her against him. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For choosing me. Over Gabriella, over the easy path, over whatever alliance would have made your life simpler. Choosing you made my life better. There's a difference. He kissed the top of her head. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. Why? Because the entire office is going to want to gossip about us, and you're going to hate every second of it. She groaned. I didn't think about that part. Too late now. He was right. The next morning, Elena walked into the office to find everyone suddenly very interested in their computer screens. The whispers started the second she sat down, and by lunch, 3 different people had found excuses to stop by her desk and make awkward small talk. Vincent thought it was hilarious. They're scared of you now, he said when she escaped to his office around 2. This is your fault. Technically, it's our fault. You kissed me in front of everyone, and I'd do it again. He pulled her onto his lap despite the glass walls. Let them talk. They'll get bored eventually. And if they don't, then they'll learn to live with it because you're not going anywhere. She kissed him, quick and sweet. You're impossible. You love me anyway. Unfortunately. 2 weeks later, things finally settled into a new normal. The office gossip died down, replaced by a grudging acceptance that yes, Vincent Moretti was dating his assistant, and no, it wasn't anyone's business but theirs. Gabriella didn't come back. And Elena Cross, the woman who'd spent most of her life trying to be invisible, learned what it felt like to be seen, to be chosen, to be loved by someone who didn't do anything halfway. It was terrifying and perfect and completely hers, and she wasn't letting go. 6 months after Vincent kissed her in front of the entire office, Elena woke up to find him already gone. Not unusual. He was an early riser, always had been. But when she reached for her phone, she found a note on his pillow instead. Roof. Come up when you're ready. She pulled on jeans and one of his sweaters, grabbed her coffee, and took the elevator to the top floor. The rooftop terrace was technically private, accessible only to the penthouse, and Vincent had told her once that he'd bought the apartment specifically for this space. She'd never understood why until now. The sun was just starting to rise over the city, painting everything gold and pink, and Vincent was standing at the railing, still in the clothes he'd worn yesterday. Did you sleep at all? She asked, walking over to him. Couldn't. He didn't look at her, just kept staring out at the skyline. Had too much on my mind. She leaned against the railing next to him, sipping her coffee. Want to talk about it? I'm leaving the family business. She almost dropped her mug. What? Not entirely. I'll still have connections, still help when they need it. But the day-to-day operations, the violence, the politics, I'm done. He finally looked at her. I've been working on it for months. Setting up successors, transferring territories, making sure the transition doesn't start a war. It's almost finished. Elena's heart was racing. Why? Because I want a life with you that doesn't involve looking over my shoulder every second. Because I'm tired of living in a world where the people I care about are targets. Because you deserve better than wondering if I'm coming home every night. Vincent, I never asked you to. I know, but I'm asking myself to. He turned to face her fully. I've spent my entire adult life building power, making connections, doing whatever it took to survive in this world. And I'm good at it. But I don't love it. I never did. I did it because it was expected, because it was safe, because I didn't know there was another option. And now I know what I actually want. A legitimate business that doesn't require me to hurt people. A future that isn't built on fear. You. He took her hand. I want to wake up next to you without worrying someone's going to use you to get to me. I want to have dinner with my family without it being a strategic meeting. I want normal, Elena. Or as close to normal as someone like me can get. She set her coffee down, needing both hands free to hold his face. Are you sure? Because I meant what I said. I knew what you were when I fell in love with you. I didn't fall in love with some imaginary version. I fell in love with you exactly as you are. I know, but I'm not sure I love who I am in that world anymore. Or maybe I just love who I am with you more. Her throat went tight. When? The transition's done in 2 weeks. I'll still keep the consulting firm. It's legitimate, profitable, and I'm good at it. But the rest? It's Luca's problem now. How does he feel about that? Vincent smiled, small and tired. He's thrilled. He's been ready to step up for years. I was just too stubborn to let him. Elena kissed him, slow and careful, trying to pour everything she felt into it. When she pulled back, his eyes were soft. You're really doing this, she said. I really am. For me? For us. There's a difference. They stood there watching the sun come up over the city, and Elena felt something shift, like they were standing on the edge of a completely different future. And for the first time, she wasn't scared of it. The next 2 weeks were controlled chaos. Vincent worked 18-hour days, meeting with family heads, transferring responsibilities, making sure every detail was handled. Elena watched him navigate it all with the same ruthless efficiency he brought to everything, and she'd never been more certain that he was making the right choice. Luca came by the office 3 days before the official transition. You sure about this? He asked Vincent, sprawled in the chair across from his desk. Positive. Because once you're out, you're out. You can't just change your mind in 6 months. I won't. Luca looked at Elena, who was reviewing contracts at the small table by the window. You know this is your fault, right? She glanced up. Excuse me? He was perfectly content being miserable before you showed up. Now he wants things like happiness and a future. It's disgusting. Vincent threw a pen at him. Get out of my office. Luca caught it, grinning. I'm just saying, you better take care of him. He's going to be insufferable now that he has feelings. I've always had feelings, Vincent said. Yeah, but now you're acting on them. It's weird. Elena laughed despite herself. I'll do my best. Good. Luca stood, suddenly serious. Really, though, thank you for making him remember there's more to life than this. After he left, Vincent looked at Elena. My family likes you more than they like me. That's because I'm likable. Debatable. She threw the pen back at him. The official transition happened on a Tuesday, in a private room at the same restaurant where Vincent had taken her after the warehouse incident with Tony. All the major family heads were there, along with Luca and a handful of others Elena didn't recognize. She wasn't invited to the meeting. Vincent had been clear about that. This is family business, he'd said, and I don't want you anywhere near it. So she waited at home, trying to read and failing, until her phone rang at 8:30. It's done, Vincent said when she answered. How do you feel? Lighter? Terrified? But mostly lighter. She heard voices in the background, the clink of glasses. I'll be home in an hour. Don't wait up. But she did wait up, and when he walked through the door just before 10, he looked exhausted and relieved in equal measure. Come here, she said from the couch. He crossed to her, sat down, pulled her into his lap. I'm officially a legitimate businessman now. Boring and legal. You could never be boring. Give it time. She kissed him, tasting whiskey and something that might have been relief. I'm proud of you. For what? for choosing what you want instead of what's expected. That takes guts. He buried his face in her neck. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have. Maybe. But I wouldn't have wanted to. They stayed like that for a long time, just holding each other. And Elena thought about how far they'd come from that first impulsive text. How much had changed? How much hadn't? A month after the transition, Elena came home from work to find Vincent in the kitchen, actually cooking. Should I be concerned? She asked, setting down her bag. Probably. I'm attempting risotto. You know how to make risotto? Nonna gave me her recipe. She said if I'm going to be domestic now, I should at least feed you properly. Elena walked over, peered into the pot. It actually looked edible. I'm impressed. Don't be. I called her twice already. She laughed, wrapped her arms around him from behind. How was your day? Good. Closed a deal with a tech company looking to expand into commercial real estate. Completely legal, no threats required. Look at you, being normal. It's weird. I kind of like it. They ate dinner on the couch, the risotto better than Elena expected, and talked about nothing important. It was normal, comfortable, the kind of evening she'd never thought she'd have with someone like Vincent. I have something for you, he said after they'd finished eating. Vincent, you just bought me that ridiculous coffee maker last week. It's not that kind of gift. He stood, walked to the bedroom, and came back with a small box. Elena's heart stopped. Is that... Just open it. Inside was a key. Not a ring, a key. She looked up at him, confused. It's to the house in Connecticut, he said. The one I bought last month. You bought a house? I bought us a house. 3 bedrooms, 2 acres, completely private. Thought we could use a place to escape to on weekends. He sat next to her. I know the apartment works for now, but I want us to have somewhere that feels like ours. Somewhere we can build something. She turned the key over in her hand, throat tight. You really are going full domestic, aren't you? Trying to. Is it working? It's terrifying and perfect and very you. She kissed him. When do I get to see it? This weekend, if you want. I want. The house was everything Vincent had promised and nothing like Elena expected. It wasn't some massive estate, just a comfortable colonial with good bones, big windows, and a kitchen that made her want to learn how to cook. The backyard had old trees and a garden that had been neglected but could be beautiful with some work. What do you think? Vincent asked as they walked through. I think you bought us a house. Technically, I bought you a house. It's in your name. She stopped walking. What? The deed's in your name. I wanted you to have something that's entirely yours, that no one can take away. He looked almost nervous. Is that okay? Elena felt tears prick her eyes. You put a house in my name? I put our future in your name. The house is just part of it. She kissed him hard enough to make him stumble back against the counter. I love you. I love you too. Does this mean you like it? I love it, even though you're insane for buying a house without telling me. I'm learning that surprising you goes better when there's real estate involved. They spent the weekend painting the bedroom, a soft gray that Elena chose and Vincent pretended to have opinions about, and planning what they'd do with each room. It felt like playing house, except it wasn't playing. It was real. Sunday night, lying in bed in their new house with paint still under her fingernails, Elena said, I keep waiting for something to go wrong. Vincent's hand stilled on her back. Why? Because this is too good. We're too happy. And in my experience, that's usually when everything falls apart. That's a depressing way to live. It's a realistic way to live. He was quiet for a moment. You know what I've learned in the last 6 months? What? That happiness isn't something you wait for permission to have. It's something you choose every day, even when it's scary. Especially when it's scary. He pulled her closer. I spent years thinking I didn't deserve this. A normal life, someone who loved me, a future that wasn't built on violence, and maybe I don't deserve it. But I'm choosing it anyway, and I'm choosing you, and I'm going to keep choosing both until you get sick of me. That's never going to happen. Good, because I have plans. What kind of plans? The kind that involve you, this house, and maybe a couple of kids somewhere down the line? Her breath caught. Kids? Eventually, if you want them. He said it casually, but she could hear the hope underneath. I know we haven't talked about it. I want them. The words came out before she could think about them. I want everything with you. The house, the kids, the boring normal life, all of it. He kissed her, slow and deep, and Elena felt something settle in her chest. This was real. This future they were building, one decision at a time, one risk at a time. This was hers. 3 months later, on a perfectly ordinary Thursday in April, Vincent proposed. Not at a fancy restaurant or on some elaborate vacation. He did it in their kitchen in Connecticut, while Elena was making coffee and he was reading the newspaper, and it was so normal that she almost missed it. Marry me, he said, not looking up from the sports section. Elena turned. What? Marry me. He set down the paper, pulled a ring box from his pocket. I was going to do this big thing, take you somewhere romantic, make a speech. But then I realized that's not us. We're the couple who started because of a drunk text and a bad decision. We're the couple who falls in love in the messy parts, not the perfect ones. So I'm asking you here, in our kitchen, on a random Thursday, because this is real life and I want you in all of it. She stared at him, coffee forgotten. He opened the box. The ring was simple, white gold, single diamond, nothing flashy. It was my grandmother's. She gave it to me last week and told me I was an idiot for waiting this long. So, Elena Cross, will you marry me? Yes. The word came out choked. Yes, absolutely yes. He slid the ring on her finger and it fit perfectly, because of course it did. Then he kissed her, and Elena tasted coffee and forever, and she'd never been more certain of anything in her life. We're engaged, she said when they broke apart. We are. Your family's going to throw a party. Nona's probably already planning it. She laughed, crying, happy in a way she'd forgotten was possible. I can't believe this is my life. Better get used to it. You're stuck with me now. Good. The wedding happened 4 months later in the backyard of their Connecticut house. Small, private, just family and close friends. Nona cried through the entire ceremony. Luca gave a speech that was equal parts touching and embarrassing. Nicole caught the bouquet and immediately tried to give it back. And Elena Cross became Elena Moretti, standing under an arch of flowers her mother-in-law had insisted on, promising forever to a man who'd taught her that love didn't have to be safe to be real. Vincent's vows made her cry. I promise to choose you every day, he said, holding her hands. Even on the days when it's hard. Even on the days when we drive each other crazy. Even on the days when the world tries to pull us apart. I will choose you, Elena. Always. Her vows were simpler. I promise to stay, no matter what. No running, no hiding, no giving up. You're stuck with me, Vincent Moretti, for better or worse. Worse, probably, he murmured, and she laughed through her tears. When they kissed, the entire yard erupted in applause, and Elena felt something click into place. This was family. This was home. This was everything she'd been too scared to want, and brave enough to choose anyway. The reception lasted until midnight, full of food and wine and dancing. Vincent's uncle got drunk and told embarrassing stories. Sophia cornered Elena and demanded to know when they were having babies. Nona pulled them both aside and gave them marriage advice that was surprisingly explicit for an 80-year-old woman. And when it was all over, when everyone had left and they were alone in their house, Elena kicked off her heels and collapsed on the couch. We did it, she said. Vincent sat next to her, loosening his tie. We really did. I'm married to you. Having regrets already? Not even a little bit. She curled into his side. Ask me a year ago if I thought this would be my life. I would have laughed. Ask me a year ago if I thought I'd be happy. I would have said no. He kissed the top of her head. Thank you. For what? For that text, for taking a chance, for staying when you should have run. Thank you for showing up, for choosing me, for building this life with me. They sat there in comfortable silence, and Elena thought about everything that had led to this moment. The fear, the doubt, the risks they'd both taken, the way love had crept up on them both, messy and imperfect and completely real. She thought about the woman she'd been a year ago, quiet, careful, convinced that safety meant staying small. And she thought about who she'd become, someone who took risks, who loved fiercely, who'd learned that the best things in life were usually the scariest. I have something to tell you, she said. Vincent tensed slightly. Good or bad? Good, I think. She sat up, looked at him. I'm pregnant. His eyes went wide. You're about 6 weeks. I found out last week, but I wanted to wait until after the wedding to tell you. He stared at her, processing, and then a smile broke across his face. Huge, unguarded, completely genuine. We're having a baby. We're having a baby. He pulled her into his lap, kissed her like she was precious and breakable and entirely his. I love you. I love you too. We're going to be terrible at this, she laughed. Probably, but we'll figure it out. Together? Together. 7 months later, Elena gave birth to a daughter they named Grace, after Vincent's grandmother. She had Elena's eyes and Vincent's dark hair and a tendency to scream at 3 a.m. that neither of them had any idea how to handle. Vincent was a disaster as a new father, terrified of holding her wrong, convinced every cry meant something was seriously wrong, calling the pediatrician so often the doctor started answering with, "She's fine, Vincent." But he was also completely devoted. He'd wake up for the middle of the night feedings, pace the floor with Grace when she wouldn't sleep, and stare at her like she was the most miraculous thing he'd ever seen. You're going to spoil her, Elena said one night, watching him rock their daughter. Absolutely. She's going to be so spoiled. Vincent. She's perfect, Elena. Look at her. Elena looked at her daughter, asleep in her father's arms, at her husband, looking at their baby like she was the center of the universe, at the life they'd built, messy and imperfect, and completely theirs. Yeah, she said softly. She really is. Grace grew up in 2 worlds, the Manhattan penthouse and the Connecticut house, splitting time between the city and the quiet. She grew up knowing her father was powerful but kind, that her mother was gentle but fierce. She grew up surrounded by family, with Nonna teaching her Italian and Uncle Luca teaching her how to negotiate before she could walk. And she grew up loved, absolutely and completely, by 2 people who'd learned that the best kind of love was the kind you chose every single day. 2 years after Grace was born, they had a son, Michael, named after Vincent's father, who'd passed away 6 months earlier. He was quieter than his sister, more thoughtful, with Elena's careful nature and Vincent's sharp mind. And their house filled up with noise and chaos and the kind of beautiful mess that came from actually living instead of just surviving. Elena quit working as Vincent's assistant when Grace was born, but she didn't stop working. She started consulting, helping small businesses with operations and management, building something that was entirely hers. Vincent cheered her on, watched the kids when she had meetings, and never once made her feel like her career was less important than his. They fought, of course, about money, about parenting, about whose turn it was to deal with Grace's terrible twos, but they fought fair, and they always came back to each other, and they never let the bad days erase the good ones. On their 5th anniversary, Vincent took her back to the bar where Nicole had convinced her to send that first text. This is where it started, he said, ordering them both drinks. This is where I made the best bad decision of my life, Elena corrected. You ever regret it? Not once. She reached across the table, took his hand. You? Showing up at your door? Never. Though I do regret not doing it sooner. We found each other when we were supposed to. You believe that? I have to. Otherwise, I'd spend too much time thinking about all the ways we almost didn't happen. He lifted her hand, kissed her knuckles. I'm glad we happened. Me too. They stayed until closing, talking and laughing like they had all the time in the world. And in a way, they did. They had years stretched out ahead of them, full of noise and chaos and the kind of ordinary magic that came from choosing each other every single day. Elena thought about the woman she'd been before Vincent, scared, small, convinced that wanting more was dangerous. And she thought about who she'd become, a wife, a mother. A woman who'd learned that the only thing more dangerous than taking a risk was never taking one at all. She'd taken the risk, sent the text, opened the door, stayed when staying felt impossible. And she'd found everything she'd been too scared to ask for. A man who loved her fiercely, a family that chose her, a life that felt full instead of just safe. It wasn't perfect. They still had hard days, still fought about stupid things, still struggled sometimes to balance everything. But it was real. It was theirs. And that was worth every risk, every fear, every moment of doubt. Because love, real love, the kind that lasted, wasn't about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone who made you want to be brave, who saw all your broken pieces and loved you anyway, who chose you every single day in all the messy, imperfect, beautiful ways that mattered. Elena had found that, and she'd learned something in the process, something she wished she could tell her younger self. Sometimes the scariest thing you can do is ask for what you want. But sometimes, if you're very lucky, the person on the other side of that fear is waiting for you to be brave enough to ask. Sometimes 2 words, "come get me," can change everything. And sometimes the man who shows up at your door is exactly the one you need, even if he's nothing like what you expected, especially then.